Hey guys, Tiffany here, and you are watching my After Hours channel's 31 Days of Halloween. Now, normally I would be uploading on Mondays and Thursdays and the occasional Saturdays, but all throughout the month of October, I have been uploading every single day with some sort of spooky themed video and a good variety of spooky themed videos as well. Some of them being ghost tales, both some of my own personal ones, as well as some urban legend and some movie reviews, some travel vlogs to some haunted or spooky places, and you're just kind of exploring their history and talking about some of the history and lore behind the place. And today I am going to be doing a little something that's in the urban legend and ghost tale category. Now, today I am going to be giving you two ghost tales or urban legends, one being about a white satin evening gown and the other about a woman known as Resurrection Mary. One of these tales is an urban legend, and the other one is actually said to be based in fact and based off of an actual person who lived. And I look forward to bringing them to you today. So sit back, grab a beverage or snack, turn out the light, and enjoy these ghostly tales. So this first story is called The White Satin Evening Gown. And it's about a young woman who was very poor, and she was asked to a local dance by a young gentleman that she really liked. However, because her family did not have a lot of money, it was only her and her mother living together, she did not have the money to purchase a dress for the occasion, at least not the kind that she wanted to. So her mother suggested that she could maybe rent a dress and find a really nice one for maybe half the price or even less of the price than she would have had she bought it brand new off the rack. So the daughter thought that this would be a good idea, and so she went to a local pawn shop and found the most beautiful white satin evening gown that she had ever seen. And when she looked at the price tag, she saw that it was within her price range. And then she was able to get it for even cheaper from the pawn shop owner, since she was simply renting the dress for the evening. So she was really excited that she was able to get this new dress for her night out with her gentleman friend. And she took the dress home, showed it to her mother, and they were really, really both excited for her to just go out and enjoy the evening with this young man. So on the night of the dance, she puts on the dress, she is picked up by her gentleman friend, and they go to the dance hall to enjoy the evening and get to know each other. And in that dress, she looks absolutely stunning, and so much so that everyone at the dance just wants to meet her and is coming up to her and just wanting to introduce themselves to her and just be in her presence because she looks so beautiful and so confident in this dress. In addition to everybody wanting to meet her, she has a wonderful time dancing the night away, and she almost loses track of time in the process. And she is dancing just nonstop and just having the time of her life, because this is a nice little break from the normal life that she would be having with her and her mother, having to just constantly work just to make ends meet. But eventually, she gets to feeling really tired, and she asks her date, her gentleman friend, to, if they can maybe sit down for a bit. So they do, but as the night wears on, she just starts to feel just not well at all, and just really nauseous. And so she asks her date to take her home. And, she thinks, maybe she just danced too much. Maybe she's a little dehydrated. Maybe she just didn't eat enough that day. And, with all the dancing, maybe she just is feeling a little bit sick. Maybe she overdid it. So she asks her date to take her home, and she wants to rest and possibly, hopefully, be better the following day. So her date takes her home, and he tells her that he will be contacting her the following day to see how she's feeling. So they bid each other goodnight, and she heads inside. And while she's inside, her mother's waiting up for her and asks her daughter how the night went. And the daughter said, she had a great time, but she's, just kind of feeling a bit under the weather right now. Perhaps she overdid it at the dance. And so she's just going to go upstairs and go to bed. And her date might be contacting her tomorrow morning. The following morning, though, the mother noticed that her daughter is sleeping in unusually late. And so she goes to her daughter's door and knocks, but there's no answer. So she pushes the door open and sees her daughter lying very still in bed. The mother, she gets kind of like this feeling that something just isn't right. So she goes over to her daughter's bed and tries to call to her, but her daughter is unresponsive. So she calls the paramedics, she calls the doctors, and unfortunately, they reveal that her daughter had passed away in the night. Now, of course, the distraught mother, she wants answers. She wants to know why her perfectly healthy daughter just suddenly just passed away all of a sudden for no apparent cause in the night. However, she did tell them that when her daughter came home from the dance, her daughter reported that she wasn't feeling well and wanted to go up to bed. So there was an investigation launched, of course, and the coroner wanted to also perform an autopsy to see what the exact cause of death was. Well, when the coroner performed the autopsy, he found embalming fluid in her bloodstream. There were small traces of it, but just enough for it to be lethal. So as the investigation goes on, her mother hands over the dress that her daughter had rented for the dance. And upon further investigation, they discover that there was actually embalming fluid inside the dress, inside the material of the dress. And so it was concluded that perhaps the embalming fluid had gotten into her bloodstream through her skin and just into her entire system as she perspired while she was dancing. So the investigation then moves to where the daughter had rented the dress, and that was at the pawn shop. Well, the pawnbroker admits that he had gotten the dress from an undertaker's helper from a local funeral home. Now, it turns out that the undertaker's helper had actually stolen the dress off of the body of another young woman who had passed away just before that other young woman was buried, unbeknownst to the funeral director. And he had sold the dress to the pawnbroker, telling the pawnbroker that yes, he had gotten it from his mother, like his mother or his sister's closet that had passed away. He had told the pawnbroker some type of lie in order to get the money that he wanted for the dress. And as it turned out, unfortunately, that embalming fluid that was in the dress from the other woman that had passed away had gotten into the system of the second young woman. And unfortunately, what was supposed to be a fun and wonderful night ended up being the last night of her life. Now, the origins of this story is said to have originated in the Midwest of the US. And there's several different variations of this story, but this is the version that seems to be the most passed around and the most popular. So I hope you enjoyed the white satin evening gown. And now let's move on to the second urban legend, the story of Resurrection Mary. Now, if you enjoy hitchhiking ghosts, you may enjoy this one. Or if you enjoy stories of people driving home late at night only to happen upon a mysterious figure on the side of the road, you may enjoy the story of Resurrection Mary. Now, according to some information found on the internet, found on Google, Resurrection Mary is a Chicago, Illinois ghost legend. A female ghost, and she appears on Archer Avenue near Resurrection Cemetery in Justice, Illinois. And the story goes was that she was a young woman who unfortunately passed away in a hit and run accident after leaving a dance in the 1930s. So sticking with the theme of a dance, so of going to a dance. And she was buried in Resurrection Cemetery, and it is said that her spirit is often seen in a white dress. And she asks for rides from motorists before vanishing near the cemetery gates. And the story of Resurrection Mary is actually eerily similar to the white satin evening gown urban legend. And the story goes is that Mary had spent the evening dancing with a boyfriend at the O. Henry Ballroom. And at some point, though, they got into an argument and Mary stormed out. And when she left the ballroom, she started walking up Archer Avenue, and she was then unfortunately struck by a hit and run driver who fled the scene and leaving Mary to suffer alone by herself, unfortunately. And then her parents found her. They were absolutely grief stricken, and they buried her in the Resurrection Cemetery wearing the beautiful white dancing dress and matching dancing shoes. And the hit and run driver was never found. And there have been several reportings of people that have seen her if they're driving, especially when they were driving along the road late at night in near the Resurrection Cemetery. People have reported seeing a white apparition of a young woman in a white dress. In fact, one particular sighting of her is a young man who actually came into contact with her. Now, this dates back to, I believe it's like the 1980s or something like that, where there's this young man, he's at a dance, maybe earlier than the 1980s, but definitely it was a couple of decades after her death. And a young man he went to just a local social in his town, and he actually met this young woman who seemed a bit out of place, but had this really beautiful, ethereal quality to her. And he approached her. He claimed that they danced, they talked all night. She seemed very shy, but seemed to enjoy his company. And, they even kissed supposedly that night too. And so when he offered to drive her home, and he basically, he wanted to see her again. And so he offered to drive her home. However, she just told him to just drop him off. She told him to drop her off at the cemetery. So he thinks that, of course, he probably thinks that's a bit odd, but he doesn't really think too much of it. He says, okay, maybe just for safety reasons, she doesn't want me knowing where she lives just yet. So, maybe she just wants me to drop her off someplace near her house so then she can walk home. But before they go their separate ways, like I said, he wants to see her again, so he asks for her phone number. So she gives him a number, and he he drops her off at the cemetery, and they make plans to meet up again. Well, the following day, the young man decides to give Mary a call. And when he calls her, though, the woman on the other end just seems absolutely baffled. She's just really confused, like, there's no one here by that name. And then she just, before he can ask any other questions, before he can ask anything else or say anything else, she just hangs up the phone abruptly. Well, he tries calling again, and then he's, look, I met this girl, Mary. This is the phone number she gave me. I'd like to speak to her, please. And the woman on the other end, once again, even more firmly says, there's no one here by that name. Please don't call her. Don't call here again. So this young man is very confused, and he decides to, but like, and it's bothering him to the point to where he decides to basically try to trace the phone number to the address. So he's successful with that, and then he goes to the house. He goes to the house that the address that matched the phone number, and he knocks on the door. And a woman answers the door, but it's a much older woman. And so he asks, he's like, I'm the young man that called. I'm sorry to bother you, but I met Mary at the dance the other night, and I would like to speak to her. And so the older woman is just like, why are you doing this? And before she could shut the door on him, the young man notices a picture of a young woman, and that young woman is Mary, who he met at the social the other night. And then he goes, that's the woman. That's the woman that I met. I just want to talk. I'm not trying to make trouble. I just want to talk to her. And the mother the woman's just there like, that, yeah, that's my daughter, but she died many years ago. And the young man is just like absolutely dumbstruck, absolutely just doesn't know what to say at that point other than, I'm sorry, and then leave. And he's absolutely just spooked the rest of the way home, just trying to figure out what happened. But it turned out that, yes, then he started to hear the story of Resurrection Mary, and it turns out that's who he was dancing with that night. And I forget whether he heard the story from her mother, what actually happened, or from like another local. But yeah, when he heard the story, like he was just absolutely just, he had come basically face to face with an apparition. And and some people theorize that perhaps because Mary's last experience at a dance prior to her passing did not end very well. So maybe she just wanted to have a fun and beautiful evening just one more time at least. So that's the story, and one of the sightings of Resurrection Mary. And yeah, have you, I don't know, have you, been driving along Resurrection Cemetery, and have you ever seen her? Do you have any sightings, or I don't know, or would you, what would you do? Like if you happen to see, a young woman, ethereal, like from the 1930s, and, just walking along, almost floating along the highway at night. near the cemetery. I don't know, what would your reaction be, but yeah, but hope you enjoyed those two stories. And we are continuing with my 31 days of Halloween up until Halloween, when I am going to be uploading every single day. I've been uploading every single day and for this entire month, and I look forward to bringing you more spooky fun. And actually, and even during the Christmas season, I think I might do like a 25 days of Christmas. But yeah, for now we're doing 31 days of Halloween, and I hope you enjoyed these two stories. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so that you know when I upload. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.